Hello everyone and welcome to the Axosoft Dashboards webinar. My name is Jonathan Silva. I'm here with Customer Success and I want to just briefly touch on what we'll be covering today and I'll introduce our main speaker here for the webinar. So this webinar is about the Axosoft dashboard. So you might be familiar with burn down charts, the actual duration, the projected ship date, and some of those other gadgets. But what about some of the other use cases? What about some of those other gadgets? And what we're going to focus on today are not only, we'll touch on a little bit of these major gadgets, but we'll be looking at this last one in particular. We're going to take a deep dive of the item chart. And so the item chart is by far the most flexible of all the item charts. We have a couple wonderful XKCD comics here to make light of some of the bad charts you might have seen in the past. But the item chart allows you to do multiple things with different types of data. And so we're going to be talking about grouping, introducing series into your item chart so that you can see an additional layer of data to the data that you already have in the item chart, and how that drills down in the actual dashboard, and then what you can do with some of these date fields. And so I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to Brett Goldman. He is with Professional Services here at Axosoft's Customer Success team, and he'll be diving into what the Axosoft dashboard can do for you.
So I'm going to just take this simple one just because I wanted to make one really large so that we can work with if you guys are watching on YouTube and don't have can't really see too much about it. And it's just a really simple chart. This one happens to be a column chart, which is just showing the assigned to field. So this is just showing like the number of items that are assigned to myself, Drew, Floyd, and Hazel. So if we go ahead and just edit the item, we can actually control what kind of information is in here. And really the easiest way to break this down for you guys is at the first half right up here, item type, release, project, filter, and date filter. These all have to do with what set of information I'm actually looking at. So the first half is filters, the bottom half is controlling how kind of everything looks and how everything is broken down. Excuse me. For this one, we're just going to go and just keep it fairly straight forward, just looking at all of my items, and I don't have any additional filters there. But we can see that everything is being displayed as different columns. And we can go ahead and change those to be a pie chart if you would want. That'll just go ahead and show you a pie graph. We also then have bars, which are columns just going right and left, line charts, which just plot everything out in a line, and an area chart, which is like we would have here, just kind of showing a line, but everything beneath it that's actually filled in. Line charts and area charts, for the most part, really work well with date fields. So I would recommend if you have anything with a date field, probably use one of those two charts, or actually column charts work well as good with date fields as well. It's just kind of like if you are looking at dates, like I'm looking at all the items based on when they were created. If I'm looking at a pie chart, it's just going to kind of just show me a bunch of different items here. And for the most part, if you have a bunch of items that are created every day, you're just going to have tons of wedges, and it's not really going to give a whole lot of information. So for those two, I would definitely recommend either the line, area, or column graph. Okay, cool. So this one right here is just kind of like a simple user field where I have everything broken down by user. And let's just go and make it the column graph again, just so we could take a closer look at it. So these are just a couple of members of my team, and I've got everything broken down by the user. But this doesn't really give me a lot of information. Just knowing like the number of items, sometimes isn't necessarily that helpful. Like everything is really blue and boring, and you'll notice it's just as boring as that boring chart that I showed you from XKCD. But the cool thing with the charts in Axosoft is that we can, of course, add additional dimensions, and that's really where adding different series will come in quite helpful. So you'll notice that in our settings here, right beneath where you're actually grouping the data by, what the actual columns are, we have this additional option for series. So it's not actually required because we can have it blank, whereas grouping, you have to have something in order to generate a chart. But your series could be blank, or you could just choose really any other dimension that you're going to look for. So let's say, okay, I want to look at the assigned to, and I want to have everything broken down by priority. So now what's going to do is that's going to just redraw my graph, and now instead of just having one simple bland blue bar, I see all these different categories. So now I see, okay, I've got an overall of 10 items assigned to me. 5 are medium, 5 are high, and 3 are just low priority. So this way it just kind of can help you really just easily see, oh, this person has a lot of high priority items. Maybe we should take some away from them, if they get sick or whatever. We don't want to have all of our eggs in one basket. We don't want to have it all in the Floyd basket in case he has to pick up and go somewhere or catches the flu. So just a real simple way to get additional information by adding a series. So one of the other really cool things that we can do with all of our charts is that since it's broken down by a series, we can add a quick legend here, which actually just shows what the series are. If you don't have the legend, you can always just mouse over everything and it'll show you what's going on. But part of the cool things about having the legend show is that we can click on the legend and hide and show different pieces of information. So this is really good if you really only care about certain bits and you want to, okay, I don't care about low priority items, or I don't care about this. I don't need to create a filter for this. I don't need to go and set anything up. I just need to, deselect everything that I want, and now it's showing. Like, it's really good for like workflow step. Like if you have a lot of work, but it's all in the waiting step, and you don't want to show that on the graph. If you have everything broken down by workflow step and you go ahead and cancel out that series, it's not going to show you stuff that is just waiting, because it's not really stuff that is kind of assigned to you. Some other neat things about this is that when you do have everything broken down by series, you will see when you hover over each bar, the tooltip will give the total for that series. So right now I see that Drew has 5 medium items and a total of 9 items that are assigned to him. And if I go back, so now I'm actually adding the low, oh, he actually doesn't have any low priority items assigned to him, sorry. That was not a good example. So if I look at Floyd, Floyd has 2 high priority items but a total of 4 items. And this total is really only my visible total right here. So if I now add my low priority items again, it'll show me, oh, I've got a total of 8. So that's really great because if you're just ignoring that data, you can just go and nuke everything here, and now it's going to give you just the accurate reflection of the sets that you're looking at. It's saying, oh, there's only 4 items in this whole bar. It's not that big because it's not that big of a deal because I've got relatively few. But if I'm looking at number of hours and I've got or if I'm doing costing and I've got stuff in the hundreds, getting an exact number so you don't have to actually interpret the graph, just doing that by hovering over is really quite convenient. Cool. So that's some of the things that we can do just by standard groups and working with grouping and series. I do want to mention a couple of things. So when you do have different groups and series, let's pop this over here. So here I've got the item chart. If I want to have everything, since I'm working on an area graph, what it will show is the different areas. Like if I now break down my series by work item type, the different series will actually just be stacked on top of each other. This one's a bit odd because I'm working with sample data and I only have a couple of pieces of information, but you would see that the data would still be stacked on top of each other, just as it would with a column chart. So it's really good if you're charting progress throughout the course of a month or whatever date you do have. All right. Great. So those are kind of like the big picture with the item charts, like how we can control kind of like the information that we do have there. But I want to talk briefly about what other pieces we can get that are beyond just series and drill downs. Oh, something I forgot to show. Having series here when we're working at the at column charts or area graphs, they'll show as being stacked. But actually, if you go ahead and if you change your chart just to be a pie chart, now what we do have is that you'll see all of these different groups as we normally have. But now instead of showing the priority as different levels, what you actually do is that if you click on a particular user, now you'd be able to see everything broken down by the series. So it's a great way just to kind of drill down and get some get some more detailed information if you want to just go and plug in. And also it works great for presentations. Like if you want to talk about different sections of your product, or if you're getting information from customers, it's a great way just to go ahead and do that. Cool. So really, like the next part I want to talk about are just what kind of fields we can actually be grouping by, because these ones are pretty standard fields that we have, like they're the assigned to field or priority. But actually, we can group by any of your custom fields that you build as well. So any custom field that is either a date field or a pick list value where you're just selecting from a single field at a time. Like for instance, if I have this field, which is just, I can remove my series, just a single select pick list where I'm just showing, what operating system, some of my incidents come in for. Even though it's a custom field, because it's a pick list field, I can go ahead and display that here. You can also show any Boolean fields, so if anything's true and false, you can show those as well. Just basically anything where there's like a definite answer. Some of the other cool things that we can do as well is you can see everything broken down by customers or companies. So like for instance, if I wanted to look at all of the incidents that were broken down by different companies, you can see everything that was reported me from like internal customers, or Universal Exports, which is of course the company that James Bond gives all of his contacts. That's the fake shell company that he works for. If you want to see everything broken down by company, just to see how many are each of my customers sending in, you can do that. And you can even do that based off of the customer or customer contact custom fields as well, which is really, really cool. So say that you're working on a help desk and you have information on your customers based on what hand they use. This is a very, very silly example. Let me just make this a column one. But as part of my information here, I've got this field called handedness, which is actually a field that I have for my actual customers. So I've got Bill Clay over here, and his handedness is sinister. He's left-handed. I, of course, am left-handed, so I love using the term sinister because that's what it means. But just by having this kind of information attached to the customer, now if any of these customers, if they report bugs, or if they are reaching out for through my help desk, sending me emails, and just kind of like whatever we have, it could also be something a little bit more practical, like what product they use, what version they're on, and whatnot. So even if it is a custom field along with the customer itself, we can then use that to go ahead and build our dashboard. So now here I can see, okay, here's how many of my here's how many pieces of information that were sent to us, or here's how many problems right-handed people were having. Here's how many problems left-handed people were having. How many problems ambidextrous people were having. And it really kind of allows to give a lot more information there. So that's cool. So basically, really just any type of field that you want, where as long as there's a definite value that you're selecting, and that also even goes for like multi-select pick lists. So for instance, I have one that's a multi-select, one, which is pretty similar to the operating system one that I have here. It's actually the same list, but instead of having one option, they can select two. So I can see, oh, well, there's 12 people, or there's 12 incidents that affect both Linux and OS 10, or 10 that are both on both OS 10 and Windows 2. So just really any type of field where there's like a definite answer that you can select. Cool. All right. So that's how I can select what information is included, and how I can just kind of partition that information to different segments. But really, all that I've been looking at is count. So count is just showing me, okay, it's this number of high priority items, this number of items that are assigned to a particular user. And that sometimes isn't really that helpful. Sometimes you don't really care about the count. You care about other information, because if I've got 10 items that are assigned to me that are itty bitty ones, and I've got one really, really complex feature that I'm trying to build, having just the count is doing me very little. So we wanted to give you other ways just to be able to look at the data. So along with any of your groups that you do have, whenever you are creating and editing the chart, at the bottom you're going to have this aggregation type as well. So in addition to count, we can have the sum and the averages as well. And now, since we're not just looking at the count, we have to say, okay, I want to look at the sum, and what is that sum? I'm summing up some value, and this can be really any type of duration or numerical field. So like, for instance, if I wanted to have everything broken down, and I'm looking at, okay, everything that's assigned to these users, and how much time did I initially think is associated with all these users with their workload, I can now go and set my aggregation type to be the initial estimate. And now it's saying, okay, I don't care about how many items. I've got 136 hours worth of work assigned to me. You'll notice, on the y-axis, it'll always tell you just like your aggregation type. So right now it'll say, oh, this is my initial estimate, and it's giving it to me in hours, which is my preferred time unit there. But we can do more things than just summing up total of hours, which is kind of really cool for getting workloads and other ones. But what we can do is that we can also add just really any type of numeric field that we have, and now we can either sum or average all of these together. So for this, what I have is I've got a custom field that's called cost. So along with every item that I had, I've got a cost associated with it. And now, based on everything that I have broken down, I can now go and actually see how the cost is broken down for each item. So, like for instance, I've got all the items that are assigned to me, Brett Goldman. They cost $1,900 to go on, and we can see that cost over here on the left as well. So, like for instance, if I wanted to go and select my user. If I wanted to see everything that I have, I've got this cost custom field that I had created. It can really be any type of custom field that you want. If you want to have an estimated cost, an actual cost, and everything that you have, or have materials costs or different ones that you want, you can just include those. Really, all you need to do is create a custom field, name it whatever you would want, set it to either a number or integer, decimal field, however you have. And now we can actually create a dashboard which will go and sum up all that information for me. Again, however you are actually aggregating will show on the left. So I like to put the dollar sign next to the cost just so it kind of shows up a bit. And sometimes, like especially if you have different aggregates, having the just renaming it as to what exactly you're looking at really can be quite helpful. So here I get to see cost breakdown per developer. it could be per project, per component, or whatever you have. But especially if you're using it for reporting, where you're looking at stuff that's not just a count or whatever, it helps just to go ahead and create a quick label for your record there. So if I look at this, it's great for costing and when you're actually estimating resources, because we can use duration fields as well as any other field that we have. But it's also good if you guys use story points, just because a lot of times, like if you want to see, okay, how many, like for instance, if you guys use story points for estimation, but not your actual work, like your actual work you're logging in adding work logs and logging all of your work in hours so you can do billing and whatever, but you still want to be able to look back everything broken down by story points. If you have your, maybe like the initial estimate, if you wanted to see, okay, well, let's group everything. I want to sum, I want to select the initial estimate, and maybe I want to group everything by the workflow step. So now I can just go ahead and just see, okay, I've got, oh, sorry, I forgot to set my time unit. So my time unit is now story points. Okay, so now I can see, oh, I've got 38.5 points of work that's new, 18 points are currently in progress, I've completed 48 points and so forth. So, it's just kind of a good way where you can just kind of look at breakdown based on all the different workflow steps that you have. Cool. So aggregations are cool because you can add any type of duration or custom field there. But there's another really good thing that we can do for costing. This is, again, just like a silly XK CD comic, but we can actually build graphs that are kind of like this, which will actually just show you what's it going to cost me to implement these features, or what's it going to or how much did it cost me, how much is remaining of my budget that you have if you're kind of halfway through a sprint. We can start to actually do some of these projections by using the next field, which is actually going to be our rate. All right, so rates, if you guys are familiar with physics, if you're not, I'm going to bore you because I was a physics teacher once, are basically just, it's the rate, it's just whatever you're looking at over time. So if you multiply it by time, you get your value, whatever you're looking at. So if we go back to our presentation, let me just say, okay, I'll look at everything in hours again. So let's change the time unit to be hours. Okay. Whenever you do have whenever you're selecting to aggregate by a duration field, you'll see that it kind of pops up. If I'm looking at a custom field, custom number field, I'm not going to have this option. But if I'm looking at like the initial estimate field, which is because it's a time field, now I get this ability just to show my rate. And this is awesome because now if I've got my estimates, which are just saying, okay, I thought this project has 1,000 man hours in it, and my guys I bill out at $75 an hour for that. Now I can go ahead and actually see, oh, well, this is kind of what we have. Maybe not for that. Let's just take a look and let's break everything down maybe by, okay, like here's a silly thing. I've got a breakdown based on all of my different projects that I have. Maybe I'm making an iOS app and an Android app and Linux and OS 10. Like, okay, so I've figured that in order to make these updates, I've got this number of man hours, multiplying it by my users going rate, and this is now my total. So this is cool because it'll actually show you how it's calculating it. So it's calculating it based on the initial estimate for all these items, and we'll have whatever whatever I'm multiplying by. In this case, it's 75. So this one I'm billing at $75 per hour that I have estimated. So some of the other cool things they can do is that if you have this broken down and now you've got a series just saying your high priority items, This is really good because you could see like, okay, well, all of my low priority items are really, it's going to cost $4,000 just to get all these low priority things there. It's really worth it now because that translates to X dollars for me going all this. Like maybe I can forego some of this backlog just because it's now I'm getting an actual cost associated with it, and I can value, is this something that I want to have on, or can I pull on more high priority items, or should I be pulling in some more high priority items? Cool. So whenever you have the initial estimate based on the cost, that'll just be how much you projected you have, which is great for planning. So like if you're planning a sprint and you have everything planned out there, if you're looking at the original estimate, you can have everything there. But I created just a dashboard itself just for straight up project cost. And what we can have here is that I've got, okay, this is the projected cost. This is based on, what I initially thought things were going to take. This is the current cost, which is this one I have based on the actual duration. How much time have I actually spent on these items? And then this one is just like the remaining cost. Like, okay, so this is already my budget. What happens if we've got we just kind of stop here? How much how much of our budget is put of this for remaining? So if we do have Arrested Development and these resources are kind of moved elsewhere, how many more dollars we're actually allocated there? So just by selecting the different duration fields, the initial, actual, and remaining duration, allow you just to see kind of broken down, what money has already been spent, what's already been allocated for it, and what's there if I complete everything else. And also, it's really kind of cool if you can break it down based on workflow step, because here, like my remaining cost, I can see all these things that are approved and everything that's in progress. So this is basically just saying, okay, if I look at everything that's in progress and just complete those, because this is kind of wasted money if I'm working on something and then I stop moving on it just because any work that I've done up to this point is now wasted. But if I just go ahead and just say like, okay, like the remaining, it would cost me X amount of dollars just to go ahead and finish everything that my developers are already working on if they pulled nothing else new in here. So it's really kind of helpful for costing, and can even really be included with other types of costing that we have, which could be material cost or other estimations. So that is one other thing that I want to talk about is if we have here, we can also, in addition just to our rates, we do have the ability to kind of like mix and match these dashboards. So I've got a cost breakdown here, which is really kind of helpful because I've got two of these, which are, I've got this, which is like my initial estimate. I've got for project A. I've got project B, which also has money, and that's the initial estimate. But I've got two different rates here. These could be two different teams which are billed out at different rates. $100 and $200. It's pretty expensive, but I'm just for illustrative purposes here. We can see, okay, well this one has $38,000 allocated, $19,000 allocated, and these are based on how much time I estimated my worker is going to take, basically times their hourly rate. So this is just human resources at this point. If you also do have a material cost, this could be your custom field that you have. So like if you have all this work for your customers, for your team to do, but then they're also, they have to buy a server and install it, and pay money to GoDaddy for a couple of domains and updates and anything that they need, which is just like a general either like material costs that they have. If they have that along with all the items that they're included, now I'm really looking at a pretty complex breakdown of all the costs for this project. All of the different man hours based on what I have my team being billed at. Like if you have different different rates for QA versus your developers versus if you have subcontractors that come out for you, you can just create another chart for them and include any of your material costs there as well. So it's really kind of flexible and really kind of great for either forecasting what you're looking at, or if it's in the middle of a release, how much of your budget have you already burned through. So we've gotten to that point where we've kind of looked at a lot of the charts that we have, and I'd like to say that this is awesome just because I'm testing out a new microphone, which is actually a desktop one, so it does allow me to be not very productive, and I don't know how it sounds because I'm spinning around in my chair right now, just looking at this chart, but it is kind of freeing just to be able to create any types of charts that we want. So basically, like I want to kind of wrap it up and just see some of the things that we can do just to share this information or kind of make it like look a little bit nicer. Just because I wanted to show you what kind of cool information we can have, and now and why you would want to be sharing this stuff with either executives or customers or anything else, and now how we can do that. So you'll notice that I had all my different dashboards here that I could select from, which is great for people that just want the information but don't need to fiddle with it and don't know really anything about Axosoft. You can just quickly just cycle through these things here. Users can always create their own dashboards, but then they can share them with other people out there. One of the cool things about dashboards is that because you can share them, because you can filter based on any of the information, there is also filters they have that are assigned to me. So like if you create a dashboard and you just use the assigned to me filter, now all of your users can just click on that dashboard and see the total breakdown of items that are assigned to them, and because then it's a lot more like, oh well, this is a breakdown of work I have to do and this and that. So if you have metrics, just using that assigned to me filter is a really great way just to create one dashboard and now have all this great information for your own team. You're just saying, hey, just go there, you'll know everything that you've been working on and just see your productivity and anything that you have. All right. Other quick things that we have, you can of course make dashboards public and private. So what this one does, whenever you select it, it allows your other team members to be able to go and view this particular dashboard. But we can also share these dashboards with people that aren't even Axosoft users. They might not even know what Axosoft is. They could be executives or higher ups, which often don't know what Axosoft is, even though you guys use it all the time. And what we can do is that you can actually just create this and copy a link to the dashboard. And this would just be just like a publicly viewable link. This does require the API, so if you don't have the API enabled, you would just need to go to Tools, System Options, API Settings, enable it for you. If it's not enabled, you'll get a warning that'll tell you, go to Tools, System Options, and enable the API. But the cool thing about this is that I can create this link, and now if I pull up an incognito tab right here, you'll notice I'm not logged into Axosoft. I could be, I could send this to someone in email. Ooh, and I pulled up actually the wrong dashboard. I would need to create one from here. So right there. And now I'm sharing this exact same dashboard here. So that's it's cool because there's no way for them to mess it up. It's read only for them because they're not really like an Axosoft user. But now you can go and share this information with whoever you want. And this is also one of the things where having the little text gadget is super helpful because you can label all these kind of things you want. But just by having the little text gadget, you can just say, hey, how awesome is this? Or just give them a little note on the dashboard just to let them know kind of what they're looking at. So, we can go ahead and really just do all of those things that you want you to go and share them with customers. We've got a couple of other cool things we can do, like changing theme and using global settings, but all of those should be available in our documentation and really are just ways that you can play around with your dashboard and allow it to get some of the information that you want. So definitely, if you guys have other things you want to learn about, dashboards, how to resize things, and what exactly every setting means, we've got some tooltips there, but we also have some of our documentation on just all these different aspects, sharing and creating dashboards that I definitely invite you just to go and play around with it. And of course, this is all read-only data. You can't really update anything from here, so you're not going to break anything by having dashboards. So definitely go ahead and play around with it, because you can do a lot of digging and get a lot of great information, really just for all of your dashboards there. Okay, great. So let me just go back. That was basically just what I wanted to cover just for the overview and things that we can do just for the dashboards. Of course, really we wanted to make them as flexible as we could, just so that you can get the information that's important to you and your team, and display it in ways that are really easy for you to absorb, and really kind of attractive. It's really kind of sleek and with all the things that you can add there. Right. So definitely, I want to thank all of you guys for coming. It's great. We had a really good turnout here. It looks like we still have about over 61 people here that all stayed to the end. So I definitely appreciate that, and appreciate I can see a lot of your questions there. I heard Jonathan typing away quite a bit that we have. So we'll try to stick around and answer some of your questions here. If we don't get to it here, we'll try to reach out through email and just go ahead and let you guys know, just so we give you guys an answer. And like Jonathan mentioned at the front, this webinar should be recorded and posted on YouTube, just so all of you guys can have access to it.